I photograph people for a living. Headshots, teams, portraits. Usually I have at least some control over the situation. Live music photography is not that. Welcome back to Adorama TV. My name is Gary Hughes, and today we're talking about learning to photograph live music. It's something I've done from time to time, but it's definitely not my specialty. It all started recently when I scored a couple of media access passes to Hurricane Party. It's a ska music festival in Sanford, Florida, featuring bands like the Toasters, Supervillains, Mustard Plug, and more. Multiple stages, 8 hours, brutal Florida summer heat, and hundreds of people. Since this is outside my normal wheelhouse, I decided to seek out some advice from somebody who does this for a living at a very high level. So I reached out to David Bergman. If you don't know David, he's not only a fellow Adorama TV personality, check out his Ask David Bergman videos, they're awesome. He's also a Canon Ambassador and the current full-time tour photographer for country music superstar Luke Combs. He was gracious enough to send over a shot list and some practical advice for covering a live music festival. So I found a teacher, got assigned some homework, and it was time to go. I packed my gear, and my wife Julie and I hit the road for beautiful Sanford, Florida, about a 40-minute drive from Orlando. I'm going to take you through the advice David gave me, show you how I used it, and then give you a few tips of my own that I learned from the experience. And don't forget to check the description for links to all the gear we used for the job. David's shot list was actually pretty simple. First up, the lead singer. This one's pretty obvious. Every band usually has somebody driving the energy on stage and pulling the attention from the crowd. In some cases, that's one person. In other bands, the responsibility gets shared by a few different people. Either way, David's advice was simple. Get lots of photos of the singers. Next up, all the other band members, bass players, horn players, keyboard players, guitar players, and David specifically said, don't forget the drummer. Turns out he was right. Drummers are tough because they're usually buried behind cymbals, hardware, microphones, and half the stage setup. It took some careful creeping around and a little patience, but I managed to come home with plenty of drummer photos that I was happy with. Next up was the crowd, and this ended up being one of my favorite parts of the entire festival. You had old school rude boys, mohawks, patched jackets, parents with kids, giant robots, just a wild mix of people. It was a really nice crowd too, even when things got a little chaotic. Everybody seemed to be looking out for each other. Honestly, it felt incredibly friendly. After that came wide shots. These are often images that tell the story best because they show the scale of the event, the people, the energy, and the atmosphere. From a marketing standpoint, they're often some of the most useful images because they help future attendees understand exactly what the event feels like. One of my favorite suggestions from David was details, hands-on guitars, set lists, pedals, and cables, little moments that most people never notice, but that add to the overall story and atmosphere of the event. On top of the shot list itself, David also gave me some advice about surviving the photo pit without becoming that photographer. Wear dark clothes. Well, I showed up in a Hawaiian shirt. To be fair, compared to some of the crowd, I think I blended in pretty well. He also emphasized respecting fans, security, and other photographers and video crews working the event. Honestly, this part felt pretty familiar. Good wedding event photographers learn this quickly. Move in, get the shot, and disappear. David also encouraged me to travel light and keep a small footprint. I brought a backpack because I was shooting both photo and video all day. No disasters happened, but I definitely had to move carefully in tighter areas and be mindful not to bump into people or disturb equipment on stage. Even though it worked out fine, my shoulders definitely let me know how they felt after 9 hours of carrying that backpack around. The bottom line is that you're there to document the event and create images for media and marketing. You're not there as a fan. Don't take space away from the people who paid to be there. You're there to work, but so are all the other photographers, videographers, sound technicians, volunteers, and security staff helping make the event happen. Be respectful of the people around you, and they'll usually return the favor. David's advice absolutely made me more aware of what was happening around me and helped me come home with a stronger set of images. But after spending 9 hours on my feet carrying gear between stages and shooting thousands of photos, I also picked up a few lessons of my own. First, hydrate. Seriously, it's easy to get wrapped up in shooting and so wrapped up that you stop paying attention to your body, even when you're not standing in the blazing Florida sun. Drink plenty of water. I kept a water bottle with me all day, and thankfully the bartenders were nice enough to keep filling it up. Next, earplugs. Absolutely essential. Bring earplugs. Bring backup earplugs. Standing next to speakers all day is a great way to sprint towards serious hearing damage. Now let's talk about autofocus. I came in with all kinds of clever autofocus ideas, and then the music started. And all those plans immediately went out the window. Face tracking and eye detection are incredible, but you've got microphones, guitars, smoke, and 100 moving faces competing for attention in the frame. Found myself spending too much time adjusting autofocus settings and not enough time making pictures. Eventually, I simplified everything to single point continuous autofocus with back button focus activated. Sometimes simpler just wins. I'd also recommend setting up a custom button that lets you quickly turn tracking on and off. If I need to switch from a crowd shot to a detail photo to a portrait, I want that change to happen with a single button press. As far as gear goes, I brought the Fujifilm X-H2 and 2 lenses, the 16 to 55mm f2.8 and the 50 to 140mm 2.8. I assumed I'd spend most of the day on the longer telephoto lens. Instead, I found myself reaching for the 16 to 55 over and over again. Because I had so much access, including being able to get on stage, I could physically move closer when I needed to. The wider zoom gave me enough reach for most situations, but it also allowed me to create some really dramatic images when the action got close. If I did it again, I'd probably throw a faster prime into the bag for some of the darker indoor sections of the festival. Ultimately, consider the size of the event when you're choosing lenses. At a larger venue, a longer lens might become much more important. In some situations, carrying 2 camera bodies may make more sense than constantly changing lenses. Finally, defining success on a shoot like this really depends on who you're working for. I wasn't hired by a band, I wasn't hired by a magazine. This is essentially a self-assignment. The promoter gave me media access, so I gave myself an assignment. Create useful marketing images. Images of the bands, the crowd, the sponsors, and the overall experience. Images that captured what it actually felt like to be there. Once I had that goal in mind, a lot of the shooting decisions became much easier. If the images I created helped promote next year's event, then I did my job. One more thing. Get the photos out quickly. There are a lot of people shooting concerts, including every single person in the crowd. Social media moves fast. Press moves fast. Don't let those files sit on your laptop. Get them to the promoter as quickly as possible so they can start putting them to work. Huge thank you to Dom from the Supervillains and Zach from Skiffdank for trusting me with media access and letting me bring you along. Thank you to David Bergman for the advice and inspiration, and a very special thank you to my wife Julie for filming throughout the day so I could make this video for you guys. She really just wanted to dance, but somehow she managed to do both at the same time. Still don't know how she pulled that off. Thanks for coming along. I'll see you in the next one.